Hi guys, welcome to Sewing with Sandy. Today we're going to talk about sewing a straight line. The technique to sew a straight line is fairly simple, but it's something that needs to be practiced. It's important that you stay on a straight line when you're sewing seams and you keep the seam allowance in mind, because if your seam allowance is 5/8 of an inch and you sew your seam allowance at say 3/8 of an inch, your garment is going to be too big. It's not going to fit the way that you are expecting it to based on the pattern restrictions. And if you sew a 5/8 inch seam allowance at 7/8, then your garment is going to be too small. So, and you also don't want something wiggly, like it's going to fit here and then not fit here. You want to stay within that seam allowance, that 5/8 of an inch. And that's easily measured from the needle in the center position. And your machine should have markings over here, and most of them will be labeled 5/8 of an inch, 3/8 of an inch. So you just need to find that line and keep your garment anchored there. All right. I will throw up a close-up of this because it's hard to see in the video. But you can tell where the marks are, and you need to stay along those marks. There are also tools that will fit into your machine that will help guide you, but the best way is to learn how to control your machine. So we're going to start with paper. Very beginners, instead of wasting fabric, a little bit of paper is a really good way to start. Now, traditionally, the edge of a general purpose foot, when your needle is in the center position, is about 1/4 of an inch. It's kind of a fat 1/4 of an inch, and you can make the stitches and then take it out and measure it with your ruler to see how you're doing. But you want to start with the paper. You also want to start with your paper a little bit further back than the needle. So my needle is right here, and my paper is about 1/4 of an inch, or my fabric, if I was using fabric, is about 1/4 of an inch beyond that. The other thing you want to do is lower your presser foot, because when you lower your presser foot, the thread isn't drawing through your needle. It's tight, and then that way you can get your needle in without losing your thread. The tail, like unthreading the needle, that's not fun. My machine has a needle down position, so I'm going to set my needle into my machine. And because I started a little bit forward from the edge, I'm going to take a stitch forward, and then I'm going to reverse it to go off, and then go forward again. And all the while, I'm going to use 2 hands to guide. I'm not pushing, I'm not pulling, I'm just guiding this. So this, just guiding this piece of paper, so this straight edge is, in this case, in line with my presser foot. So I am just going to keep it on the go. You can go slow, you don't have to go this fast. And if you get stuck, stop, regroup, and then start again. And if you're going to back tack, you don't want to go off the edge. You want to wait just before you're going off the edge, back tack a bit, and then go forward, and then you can take your piece out. So you can see my line is pretty straight. It's actually right on the black line of the paper. If you look at the back, you can see how straight that is. And then I can take my ruler and I can measure that, and that's kind of a fat 1/4. So my 1/4 of an inch is a little fat. It's more like a 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to keep that in mind as I'm using this new machine. So once you've mastered getting this on the paper, some straight lines that you're happy with, and just keep trying them until you get them straight. You know, it's about practice. You can start with some fabric. So here I have a piece of muslin, and typically you sew 2 pieces of fabric together. You sew 2 edges together. So I am going to do that now. And I want to line up these edges, the 2 raw edges. So I have my top piece and my bottom piece, and I'm going to line up these 2 edges, and I'm going to pin them perpendicular to the way I'm sewing them. This will keep the edges in line. If you pin them this way, first of all, the pins are in the way, but secondly, they'll have a chance to slide, and we don't want that. So I'm going to pin as much as I've needed. And the other thing you want to make sure of is that you don't sew over the pins. Needles don't like going through pins at all. So this time I'm going to use my 5/8 of an inch mark on my machine. I'm going to put my fabric a little bit past my needle, put my presser foot down and sink my needle. The reason you start past your needle is that if you start right on the edge, there's a tendency for your fabric to get jammed down into the throat plate, and we certainly don't want that. Then you have to take it out and the bobbin gets all messy and yeah, so it's much easier to take a stitch and then I'm going to back it up, and I can back it up off and come back again. Now I'm going to take this pin out because I've started, and I'm going to keep my edge on this 5/8 of an inch, and I'm going to use my hands to guide it. And when I come close to the next pin, I'm going to stop and take the pin out. Again, just guide the fabric, stop, take the pin out. You want, my machine has an automatic needle down. If yours doesn't, you want to make sure that you put the needle down before you start maneuvering the fabric around. And again, I get to the end, I'm going to back it up and then sew off. Now this is a new Bernina I have. It's the Bernina 38. It's the Burnett, and honestly, it's so great. It has the needle down position, so it automatically goes down, and it cuts the thread for you, which is so the tails are super tiny. But you can see how straight my edge is, right? Front and back, the stitches look terrific. And the other thing that you want to look at to make sure that your stitches are good is that they don't, like, you don't see them, right? Even with the blue thread, you barely see those stitches. So those are terrific. And it's that simple. That's how you sew a straight line. You need to practice, practice, practice. But if you pin these edges and keep your hands just guiding the fabric, don't jam it, don't pull it, and you will end up with beautiful seams all the time, every time. So that's all for now. I hope you subscribe to our channel. We would love to have you, and you can learn lots of sew-alongs. We have tips and tricks all along the way, but this is the very beginning. This is where we're going to start. Until next time, this is Sandy. Happy sewing. Bye.